What's up, you guys? Welcome back to my channel. It's your girl Maua back with another tutorial, and today's tutorial is actually by request. One of you guys asked me to do a video on how to be more descriptive in your writing, and I am so happy to do that for them. And without any further ado, let's get to how to write more descriptively. So I have with me about 4 points in which you guys can write more descriptively. And what I want to say before I get to those points is that anyone, even when I started, if you're just starting, it's not going to be easy to do it, but you will learn as you go. So don't mind about being too descriptively, because sometimes I tell you guys, descriptively can be too much. So when you're just starting, really, you shouldn't worry too much about whether you're being descriptive enough or not. Just worry about writing, and the more you develop, the more you write more, the more you will go back and describe more things. So without further ado, let's get to it. Point number 1. Think about what you want people to feel when you're talking about something. So writing is all about feelings. You don't just write and write and write. You need to try to put feelings. So one way to be more descriptive is for you to think about what you want your readers to feel as they read this passage or this entire chapter, or even if it's just a paragraph. Think about what you want them to feel. For example, let's say you're talking about eyes. Let's say green eyes, my favorite color of eyes. So let's say you want to talk about, this paragraph is about describing a guy's green eyes. So instead of saying something about along the lines of the guy had green eyes, that's just simple. Okay, the guy had green eyes. But think about what you would have loved to hear somebody tell you how these green eyes of these guys are. So I'm gonna give you guys an example of a passage talking about somebody's green eyes, how I would describe it. And so by thinking of what I wanna hear, when you're describing what I wanna hear when someone describes these green eyes, I came up with all these words. So here goes. He turned around. He looked at me, and my heart skipped a beat. Green, bright and beautiful, like he could see through me, through my biggest insecurities, fears, and everything I never wanted people to know. When I looked closely enough, his eyes reminded me of the deepest, brightest shades of moss illuminated by the sunlight. So you see, I explained what those green bright eyes felt like. They felt like they could see through me. They felt like a green moss shone down by the brightness of the sunlight. So I explained what I wanted people to feel, what I wanted them to feel when I'm explaining this eyes. So that's the point number 1. Think about what you want your audience to feel. Point number 2, avoid telling and show instead. Now, this is actually the biggest thing that I think I'm gonna have a video about, showing and not telling thingy that everybody talks about. I will have the video about that in depth, but today I'm gonna talk about just a little bit so you guys understand. When you're showing and not telling, it explains more. It becomes more naturally, like it becomes descriptive, because you're showing somebody something instead of telling them something. Example, I felt anger. You are telling your readers that you felt anger, or she felt anger, or whatever. So that's telling. What you want to do is showing, and by showing, you automatically describing stuff. So instead of just saying I felt anger, you can say something like this. Without even realizing it, my fingers had curled into fists. The sharp pain that came from my nails digging on my palm didn't register at all, as all I saw was red. My jaw hurt from how hard I ground my teeth trying to stop the only thing I really wanted to do. When it was too much, I opened my mouth and let it all out. I screamed. See, that already shows this person is angry. And there was no any word about anger in this whole description, but by the curl of her face, by the clench of her jaws, by the scream at the end, by the eyes hard and everything, you see somebody is actually angry instead of just telling them I felt angry. However, there is one thing I want to tell you guys. You want to be descriptive, but you don't want to be overly descriptive. Sometimes I can tell you guys, you just need to say what you have to say. Simple as that. I cried. She cried. Not, I don't know, water ran through her eyes and down her cheeks, and I don't know, describing on and on. Sometimes just say something as it is. Sometimes you don't have to be too descriptive to get your point across. Sometimes you just say what needs to be said. She cried. I cried. Enough. People understand that. Number 3, another way to be as descriptive as you can is to imagine yourself in the scene. Imagine yourself, you're actually there. Automatically, you imagining that you're there, you see things a lot more closely. You can describe a lot more descriptively. For example, let's say you are in a forest. You're watching someone, their actions. You're watching them look at something. You're watching them doing something. Automatically, you can be more descriptive, more detailed when you're actually telling someone, when you're there, like telling someone what this person was doing. For example, the forest standing high and imposing in front of her caused her to falter in her thoughts. She hated snakes, afraid of them, and she knew there were bound to be a lot of them waiting for her as soon as she take that step in. By you imagining that you're there at the scene that you're trying to describe to your readers, automatically you will be more descriptive. You will describe things in much more details. Point number 4. Whatever you do in your writing, try not to sound boring or too wordy. That's like a no-no. If you don't want to sound boring, you will be descriptive. But if you're a lot descriptive, you will become too wordy. So I'm gonna give you guys an example for this. Let's talk about hair. Black hair. Black. His hair was black. That's boring. Like, his hair was black. Okay, maybe you don't want to be too descriptive, but also his hair was black. It's just, it's just boring. But instead of just saying his hair was black, you can say something like this. His hair, jet black, glistened as the sun shone on it, like the never-ending pools of dark waters with sparks on top of it. Nice, simple, descriptive. Like, you can tell that his hair shone as the sun. His hair was sparkling as the sun shone down on it, like that pool of dark waters with glistening sparks on top of it. So obviously that's like very shiny black hair, and you described it very nicely without being too wordy or too boring. So what do I mean by maybe something is too wordy? This is just, I didn't write this down, but this is gonna just come out of my head. For example, what do you mean being too wordy? Marcus reached for his car keys that was on his left side on top of the cabin that was standing a little to his left, and he reached this key by using his right hand, and you get what I mean. It's too wordy. You don't need to tell this was on the left hand, it was on a little bit to his side, and then he reached with what hand, and then he, it's just too much. You can just say Marcus reached for his keys, which was on top of his cabin, and that's enough. So that's the meaning of being too wordy. But if you want to be descriptive, those 4 points is what I usually use for myself, and I say that I actually have really good descriptions. But also, if you guys need more help with this, I will put a link on my description box where you guys can get some ideas about how to be more descriptive and learn from there. The link is descriptionally. This is where usually I go whenever I want to feel fancy and I know what I'm talking about. So it's really good. So use descriptionally to learn a lot more how to describe things. If you guys like my video, please don't forget to thumbs up, and please don't forget to subscribe to my channel, and I will see you guys on my next videos. Bye.